And there you have it. This is what is known as a five-sided box. It is very popular in Southern California. They are extremely effective and are used for various reasons. One reason is to save space so the customer can move his or her seat all the way back, and secondly, to maximize the amount of airspace available by using part of the truck as the enclosure. Now, let's move on to part 3 of our video, in which we will simply be covering a few miscellaneous tasks using woodworking in the install bay. We will cover countersinking, using a sureform, mitering, finding angles, and creating edges using a router. First, let's talk about countersinks for a totally different application.
The drill press has a variety of different uses in the install bay. One of my favorite uses is that of a countersink for buttons when I'm vinyl wrapping door panels.
The purpose for countersinking the buttons is to flush them out with the surface of your panel. So it is important to set your depth gauge properly. Next, clamp your work down with a piece of wood beneath it to ensure you don't damage your bit or drill press. To countersink buttons, we will use a wood bit about 1/8 inch larger than the diameter of the buttons to account for the vinyl. A countersink like this is used for a panel to look like this. Next, let's go over countersinking screws for a permanent finish. When I say a permanent finish, I mean one in which you won't be removing the screws ever in the future. This is done for several reasons. Most of them are for finishing, and there's never a need to remove your screws. First, start by drilling a hole in your top board big enough to where your screws will not bind when joining the two pieces together. Next, take your countersink bit and drill into your holes to countersink your screw heads. Here's a close-up of what your countersink bit does. Once we have screwed our work together, we will proceed with the body filler to fill in the holes. Once your body filler has set up to a point where it is firm but not too hard, you're going to want to take your sureform and grate the top off of it. Remember, there is some shrinkage in body filler, so if you're going to be painting this piece, make sure additional fill isn't needed once it is fully cured. Now, let's look at a process to finish an edge using our laminate trimmer with a 45-degree trim bit. Simply take the piece that you wish to trim and run the laminate trimmer over the edge while letting the bearing follow the edge. Let's take a look at a few bits used in edge trimming. Here is a 1/2 inch roundover bit to give you a perfectly rounded finish. Here is the 45-degree bit, which we will be demonstrating with. Notice that these bits are carbide tipped, which is good since they will encounter a brad nail now and then. It is a good practice to avoid wood screws at all costs. This will ensure a long life for your router bits. Now we'll trim the edge with a 45-degree trimmer. One thing I would like to point out is always move your routers and trimmers in the opposite direction in which your blade is turning. Here's the results. This gives your edge a nice finish, as do the roundover bits. To find more creative edgers, visit your local woodworking supply store. The last thing I would like to cover is how to find our angles using an angle finder and a protractor. It is a fairly simple procedure. Take the angle in which you are trying to find and lock your angle finder at the desired pitch. Next, line your angle finder up running in a straight line with your carpenter's square like this. Now read the number on the protractor side of the carpenter's square to find your degree of pitch. Now, when you are mitering two pieces of wood together and want to butt up the two against each other to get a perfect fit, simply find the angle you desire and divide the two, and that will give you the degree of pitch that both pieces should be cut. For instance, if a 45-degree angle is what you are trying to achieve, then the two pieces cut at 22.5 degrees will equal 45 degrees when the two ends are butted up against each other. Alright, let's recap what we've learned. In Part 1, we learned how to bend wood, how to cut perfect circles using a router, how to build various jigs, how to countersink speakers, and how to use jigs to duplicate your work. In Part 2, we taught you how to quickly come up with difficult contours, how to trace and duplicate your work time and cost effectively, and how to build a five-sided box. In Part 3, we learned various types of countersinks and their uses, how to use body filler and a sureform, how to trim an edge with router bits, and how to miter and find angles.